We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Wrestling Through the Decades. Tonight we have the decades of the 2000s. This is a very important decade for Bucknell Wrestling. It was one that played a huge part in revitalizing the program and getting it back in the spotlight after a few years where we didn't have wrestling here at Bucknell. And the alums on the call tonight are four of the gentlemen that really got that done for Bucknell Wrestling. So we're really looking forward to this segment. My name's Todd Newcomb, and I want to thank Geisinger as our sponsor for this event. Geisinger has done a tremendous job throughout the pandemic, helping the communities in the surrounding area. And as always, they do a great job with our student athletes here at Bucknell. So before we kick it over to Coach Wernsberger, I want to introduce our student athlete on the call tonight. It's senior Matt Kolonia. Matt is a 149-pounder from Milford, New Jersey. And we're excited to have Matt on the call, joining Coach Wernsberger. And let's get right to the introductions of the guys that are going to be doing all the talk. So first of all, from the class of 2010 is Dave Marble. Dave was a team captain in 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009. Very rare that we have a four-year captain in any sport. He ranks fifth in career overall wins with 111. He was a four-time EIWA place winner. He was a 2007 EIWA runner-up at 133 pounds, and he was a four-time NCAA qualifier. He won the team's William A. Graham Outstanding Wrestler Award in 2008, and he won the Edward W. Pangburn Award at the Athletic Department's Senior Awards Banquet in 2010. Our next guest, also from the class of 2010, is Andy Rendas. Andy was also a four-year team captain those very same years, 06, 07, 08, and 2009. He owns the school record for single-season dual wins at 19. He ranks second in career overall wins at 121. He ranks tied for eighth on the career pins list with 24. He ranks sixth on the career winning percentage chart at 79.1% of his matches. He was a four-time EIWA place winner, the 2009 EIWA runner-up at 165 pounds, and the 2010 EIWA champion at 165. He was a four-time NCAA qualifier, finishing fifth at the NCAAs in 2009 to earn All-American status, and sixth at the NCAAs in 2010 to once again earn All-American status. He won the team's William A. Graham Outstanding Wrestling Award in 2009 and 2010. He won the Christy Mathewson Award at the Athletic Department's Senior Awards Banquet in 2010. And Andy was inducted into the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2020. Our next guest, also from the class of 2010, is Shane Riccio. Shane was a team captain in 2008 and 2009. He ranks seventh in career overall wins at 108. He was a three-time EIWA place winner, including two third-place finishes, and he was a three-time NCAA qualifier. And our final guest from the class of 2011, Kevin LeValley, team captain in 2009 and 2010, owns the single season and career overall wins records at Bucknell at 42 and 127, respectively. He ranks eighth on the career winning percentage chart at 76%. He was a three-time EIWA place winner, the 2010 EIWA runner-up at 149, and the 2011 EIWA champion at 149. He won the EIWA Coaches Trophy also in that year, and he was a three-time NCAA qualifier, finishing seventh at the NCAAs in 2010 to earn All-American status, and finishing seventh again in 2011 to also earn All-American status. So, Coach, it's a great group. I'm going to turn it over to you and Matt. Let's have a fun call.
Sounds great. Thanks, Nuke. Congratulations to you dudes, you guys, on all the successes. Obviously, you guys have earned it. A lot of hard work went into it, blood, sweat, and tears. As far as three of you guys being part of that first recruiting class and LeValley coming after you guys, awesome memories, right? Great memories. But as we begin sharing those memories, I'll start with you first, Shane, with this question, and then we'll work our way through. Just update us on where you're at in your personal life, if you will. Where do you live, your career, family, etc.
Awesome. Yeah. Out of school, I worked in New York for a quick minute, about 1 year for a Wall Street firm. And then I moved down to the Philadelphia area and started working for the Graham Company, who, as many of you know, is the benefactor of the wrestling program at Bucknell. And several other Bucknell wrestlers followed me there over the years. And it's great to have a little bison herd down there. So I've been there for 9 years, just recently moved up to Westfield, New Jersey with my wife, Lauren, who's actually due September 24th. So we're knocking on the door of another young bison member of the herd. So very exciting times over here. That's sort of my update where I'm at, and love the Graham Company and being an insurance broker, and have had some success there, and look forward to many more years working for Bill and staying connected to the bison.
Great. Thanks, Shane. Thanks for the update, and congratulations. We wish you the best with the upcoming baby for sure. Marble, if you can just give us an update as far as just where you're at, your career, family, just where you live, and anything else that you want to share with us.
Yeah, so I live a long walk or a 3-minute drive from campus, just south of Newcomb and the Bucknell campus. So I've been back at Bucknell for my second stint for almost 3 years as an annual giving officer, and now a major gift officer for development under university advancement. I got a daughter that's about 1.5 years. She's growing really fast, which is just an indicator of how far we are since 2010, which is crazy to me. My wife Nicole, we've been married for 3 years, and I've enjoyed every minute of my time back in Lewisburg, helping the university and the program that I love become better, grow, and improve as we are trying to keep up with everything else.
Thanks, Marbs. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate everything you do for the university. Rando, I'll turn it over to you. Just tell us where you're at in your career, family, in your life.
Yeah, so live about an hour and 15 minutes north of Lewisburg, up in Wellsboro. I've been married for 6 years now. 2 kids. So I have a 4-year-old, and I also have a 18-month-old. So they've been keeping me quite busy here over the past, couple of years. In terms of just finished my master MBA program here, not about 1.5 years ago, about a little under a year, I guess. So been keeping busy, keeping the grind, working for a local community bank, doing a lot of finance work for them, and kind of moving up the ladder. So, and the same thing as goes, still keeping in the coaching. I know I've been, trying to give a Bucknell a couple, recruits here and there. I know I've given you guys Slay there not too long ago, and so hopefully just kind of keep feeding the program.
Thanks, Rando. It's great that you continue to stay involved in the sport too. Love it. I know Marble does, and I know Riccio does too. So it's awesome to see. And lastly, Coach LeValley. And I know kind of where you're at. Why don't you share with everyone else out there as far as where you're at with your family?
Yeah, not a problem. My wife and I moved back to Lewisburg in 2015. So I've been an assistant coach for 5 going on 6 years now. Awesome to be back in the Lewisburg area. We live about 10 miles out of town. I get to live the dream, as I like to say it, as far as being involved with the sport I love at the place I love the most on a daily basis here at Bucknell. And we've been fortunate and blessed to have 2 kids. We've got our oldest, who will turn 3 in November, and then our youngest just turned 1 about a week ago. So about 10 minutes for me to get from my house to campus, and I'm right where I want to be.
Great. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. And then, Rando, I'll start with you with this next one. Obviously, it was unique for your class. We were recruiting in general. There was no team in place when during your recruiting process, and Marble's and Riccio's. Just can you take us back to the beginning? Tell us about your recruiting experience, even though it was unique, and how you ultimately chose to wrestle at Bucknell.
Yeah, so absolutely. So it was unique, coming into a program that, almost had no upperclassmen. You're coming in fresh, and, and me being from Pennsylvania, being almost a highly trotted recruit, being a state champ out of Pennsylvania, and then, even after I committed to being a 2-time, state champ is nothing to kind of look away from. So definitely had my options, and, visited quite a few campuses. I always say, like, I went to Virginia, I went to a lot of different places that were recruiting me. And, I'm not sure that those other places kind of valued me. A lot of places kind of wanted me to walk on, or no money involved, or it was like, what, I'm worth a lot more than what you're telling me. So, I got to Bucknell and really loved the campus, really kind of like the atmosphere. And it was a little bit was taken back when you don't see any upperclassmen or kind of guys to kind of see along with, which was, good and bad. You knew right away that you were going to step in and kind of be the guy. But it was just, kind of a culture shock almost. You're going to be it, and the program's going to focus around you and kind of go from there. But I mean, I know we had Larry Sprecher, and you guys kind of gave me everything that you could throw at me, and obviously I appreciate it, and I think that was almost a determining factor. You guys wanted me, and you guys knew the value that you were going to get with me. A lot of places didn't know, kind of were a little bit gun shy with me, or things like that. And it just never panned out at these other institutions that I went to go visit. So I really felt when I left Bucknell's campus, they were giving me everything that they could to offer me. And, I really kind of took that to heart and said, they really want me, and I'm going to go, and that's kind of when the point I decided, like, let's do this.
Yeah. Thanks, Brendo. I just remember, I was like, just looking at your credentials and your bio, man, it was like, well, we thought obviously you were a long shot, 2-time undefeated Pennsylvania state champ, your last 2 years of high school, your scholastic career. So you had a tremendous career, and that was a big land for us. I remember when that happened and transpired. So thanks for taking a chance on us, because I know it was different, but opportunity, right? Opportunity's knocking at the door. Yeah. You come in and you are the guy right away. I'll pose that question to you, Shane. Just thoughts on the process with your recruiting experience and choosing Bucknell. You're our guy, right?
You're kidding. I've heard this story told by my dad and by Larry Sprecher and by you many times, and it's a funny one. But I wasn't the most coveted recruit for a long time until really junior nationals, and I had met Larry Sprecher before junior nationals, and got a chance to meet Werns at junior nationals. But the moment that I met Larry Sprecher, the only reason I met him was because he saw this crazy fat old man in the middle of a gym in New Jersey in the summertime at a wrestling tournament, barking out orders here, this, that, and the other thing. And of course, Larry is a colorful fella. He likes those charismatic people. And sure enough, he goes over and starts talking to this guy. It happens to be my dad. And my dad says, watch my sons. Bucknell, that's a good school. Watch my sons, and start recruiting them. Well, Tyler and I were wrestling. We lost every match that day. Larry still kept in touch with us because we wrestled hard, although we lost. Then at junior nationals, I placed, and I was a 0-time New Jersey state place winner, but I did do well on the national level at junior and senior nationals, and met Werns, learned more about the story, learned about the opportunity we had to start as freshmen. Then I walked on campus for the first time, and the rest is history. So.
Yeah, that's great. You really took advantage of the opportunity, really. I mean, you came in and you gained such valuable experience that freshman year. Yeah. When you're starting, you're the guy, man, you got no choice. You're thrown in the fire.
Of course,
right?
The phone calls leading up to me accepting was from Werns after he knew he had me. Oh, Shane, you're going to be our guy at 174 pounds. That's where that all came in. And it was a great opportunity that I definitely made the most of. Yeah. So.
But without that freshman year experience, I don't know if you have the success you had like your junior and senior year especially, right? And that says a lot about just your determination and stick-to-itiveness for sure.
Yep.
Marbs, talk to us.
So my recruiting path was more similar to Shane's in that I had only placed at the New York State tournament one time, and so I wasn't highly recruited either. Essentially, my high school coach sat me down and made me fill out a bunch of questionnaires, and Bucknell just happened to be one of them, I believe. I hadn't visited anywhere, and then, Dan, I talked to you about this a while ago. I brought, I don't know if you can see this, it's the pamphlet from when we came for that 21-person recruiting class with this guy named Dan Gable and this guy named Mike DeRoe. And it was pretty impressive to see the class that had been brought in, the size, and the vision for this program, where my high school program nearly got cut before I got there, and I helped rebuild it. And I was very intrigued to come to a place that needed to be rebuilt. And that was a big piece to going to Bucknell, but it was very clear that the school was fantastic. The program could go as high as it wanted to go. And so I was really excited by that. But essentially, my superintendent made me go to Bucknell. I told the story like Shane a million times in the recruiting visit with Dan and Sprecher. She pulled me out of it and said, listen, you're going in there right now and saying you are going to Bucknell. And I want you to say specifically in those words. And I said, okay, Mrs. Woods, I'll do whatever you say. Just don't hurt me. And so I went back in and said, I'm going. And as Shane said, the rest is history.
Yeah, thanks, Marbs. Marbs was really impressive. Just you could tell his ceiling was really high. I used to watch him wrestle at a couple events, and you never got tired. You got caught in some weird positions, but you never got tired. I was like, this guy's gonna be good. And then you were talking about DeRoe, and you were DeRoe's like drilling partner or drilling dummy for that clinic, and he said, hey, this guy's gonna be good. You need to try to get this guy out of the class. And then that whole story, I'll never forget going to your school with Larry Sprecher and the superintendent. This lady was standing right beside us, and we were trying to get a commitment from Marble, had a great deal and package for him, and he wouldn't pull the trigger. He was just kind of silent. I'll never forget when she pulled you out. She said, David, step out here. And they were out in another room out in the hallway for like 5 minutes. And literally he came back and said, all right, I want to commit to Bucknell. It's a great story. It's a classic story. It'll go down in history, and it's fantastic. And look at the career he had, obviously. So congratulations to all you guys. And LeValley, I'll end it with you.
Awesome. I think these guys really said one thing in common, and that's the opportunity piece. And I'm not an East Coast guy. I grew up in Colorado, and it was a long ways from Lyman, Colorado to Lewisburg, PA, about 24 hours on the road if you're driving it. And I essentially knew that I'd be going to school at a place like Bucknell. If I was at Bucknell, I'd be a long ways from home and a long ways from that support system that I was so used to having. So these guys really sold it. I mean, they were there when I came on my official visit. And it was a group of guys that you can see yourself spending the next 4 years with. And it was awesome. It was really, really awesome just to get to know these guys from all over the East Coast, right? The Pennsylvania dude, the Jersey dude, and the New York dude, and get to know them on that visit and kind of see the vision that the coaching staff and these guys shared for the program, right? And just that opportunity to potentially step into a lineup and make an impact right away. It was the best of both worlds for me, academically, athletically, and I guess looking back, I think it was the best choice I possibly could have made at 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. I didn't know if you were going to share about maybe your visit and Coach Hoffman's intensity during that workout that you viewed with. I think it was versus Marble. It was Marble and Greg Hart, correct? Right, Marbs?
I don't know the full details of the story. That might be another call.
Okay. But you guys all have awesome stories, and it all comes back to opportunity. And you guys all had amazing careers. Amazing that will go down in history in the record books. So really cool. I'll turn it over to Matt Kolonia to ask a question.
Hey guys, I guess I'll give a little bit about myself real quick before I get into the question. But I'm a senior here at Bucknell now, obviously on the wrestling team, and I'm a mechanical engineer major here. And I currently, or just about a little over a week ago, I accepted a job offer out in Clifton, New Jersey for a military defense contractor called L3 Harris, where I'll be a manufacturing engineer for the Space and Airborne Division. So, I'm really excited about that, and that kind of speaks in line. I know everybody on this call can attest to it, speaks how great Bucknell is at getting me connections and opportunities, and that word opportunity keeps coming up on this call. But, I think that's really what Bucknell's centered about. But onto the question here, I wanted to know if you guys, any of the past wrestlers, had any advice for me or current wrestler based off of your college wrestling experience at Bucknell. I don't know who wants to start. I guess Marble, you can start.
Yeah, I think it can be summed up pretty simply and quickly. Just like in the wrestling room, iron sharpens iron. You want to surround yourself with people smarter than you as much as possible. If you're the smartest person in the room, you want to rebuild your network of people or rethink. If you're the hardest worker in the room, you want to find some people that work harder than you, and so on and so forth. I think the people you surround yourself with, again, much like a team or your wrestling partner or whatever it may be, that is key. Surround yourself with good people and allow them to help push you to new heights.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, at Bucknell Wrestling, you were given mentors, right? You were handed them via the upperclassmen when you were a freshman. In the real world, really well-run organizations will have some type of structure for you, whether it be a training out of the gate or a mentorship program. But if you want to be the best, if you want to achieve beyond what the norm is, you should go out and pursue mentors, is what I would call it. Find as many mentors as you can and just be a sponge soaking up information from them, and ask good questions, because the more questions and the more diligent you take notes, the faster you'll get up to speed, the more success you'll have sooner, is what I would say. And mentors will try to give back as much as they can and ask for very little in return. Obviously, you'd prefer to give back to them as well, but they were all in your shoes as well, is what I would say.
Brendo?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I know Shane and Marvel just covered it too is, I a lot of my wrestling careers kind of built on, people telling me that I can't do something, and that almost fuels me. When somebody tells me I can't do something, it makes me work that much harder. Or if I'm not capable of doing something, it kind of takes me to a new level. And it kind of take that negativity and then kind of turn it into a positive. And those naysayers, they don't know what it takes. People that haven't been in the wrestling program and know what it's like to grind through, they don't know. Like there's a different mindset in wrestlers, and once you get in the kind of the workforce and get that kind of general work environment, you really can kind of separate yourself from the rest of the pack, and that's a huge part of the wrestling too. Is a lot of people don't want you to see you succeed, and I kind of took that and kind of run with it, and I actually prefer people not wanting me to succeed, because then I kind of go out and prove them wrong and kind of make a statement for myself. And, that kind of carries over to both in my family life, both in my work life, and, things like that. And that'll really kind of make you successful.
Awesome. I mean, I think these advice from these three guys is probably about the best thing you could get, Kolonia. I think we should set this stuff up more often for our current student athletes to be able to reach out to alums on a personal level like this and just pick their brains. I think the biggest thing from the coaching realm that I've really seen is just the ability to adjust and adapt, which is something we all learned as wrestlers, right, throughout our careers. As the competition changed, as we moved up levels, from elementary to middle school to high school to college, we had to adjust, adapt. As rules change, as they do in any sport, especially wrestling, learning to adjust and adapt to those rules. And I think just carrying that into your professional life as well. Management, your boss might change, policies change, resource changes, but just being able to continually make changes in your own thinking and your own philosophy to adapt to those changes and be as successful as possible. But one of the things I'm looking to definitely adjust right here is utilize this Zoom platform to connect you guys directly to our alums more often. No doubt about that.
Great. Thanks, Matthew, for that question, and thanks, guys, for your response. I'll start with you, Kevin. Just with this next question, just talk about your maturation process, or how you matured as a wrestler on the mat from your time as a freshman until your senior season.
Absolutely. I was an 18-year-old kid, 1,500 miles across the country from home. So it took me a while to adjust and adapt to being on my own and making decisions on my own. Sleep, nutrition, socially. And there were times that I learned from watching others, but then there were some times that that I learned from my own mistakes. And it took me a solid year and a half to really figure out what it took to be successful at this level of wrestling, right? At the Division I level of wrestling in the IWA, which is one of the toughest conferences in the country. And I think when I finally started watching people around me that were accomplishing things and achieving things that I wanted to achieve, that's when I really started to make those adjustments over the years. You know, when I started really keenly observing what a guy like Andy Rindos was doing at 6 o'clock in the morning on a July morning, right? When I really took a look at how hard a guy like Dave Marble was going through the drills in practice, rather than just getting the drill done, he was doing every single rep as hard as he possibly could, right? When I started really observing these guys and seeing what they were doing, I was able to correlate that with their success. It wasn't just magic, right? It's just not, hey, they're good because they're good and always have been good. They had to work to get there. So that was the biggest piece in my development, right? I got better year to year. Went from not qualifying for NCAAs to qualifying to placing a couple times my last 2 years. And the biggest piece was just observing what other people had done to get to where I wanted to be. And like I said, Rindos and Marble, huge pieces of that. Obviously, Shane was a guy that made it to the NCAA tournament before I did too. So just trying to figure out how they were doing it, right? And what they were willing to sacrifice on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a yearly basis in order to achieve those goals.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That was really interesting because you're right. I mean, it was definitely a process. I mean, you went from not being, you didn't place at EIWAs your freshman year. You didn't qualify for nationals. You just developed and you got better and better, and just there was no give up attitude. For the next year, you qualified, came really close, won a match there, I believe, and then boom, your last 2 years it just kind of clicked for you, and then you take off. That says a lot. So, Rendos, you want to talk about your maturation process on the mat, how you developed from early on as a freshman to your senior season?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously coming in freshman year, no upperclassmen, you kind of had to make your own statement. So, I was really highly competitive, good wrestler in high school, obviously, and kind of taking it, another step further. And I had a brother that wrestled in college, and I kind of had a sight of what it was going to do, what was going to happen, how tough it was going to be. So I was kind of prepared, my brother was a 2-time state champ too. So I kind of wanted to oust him in college. So that's what my drive was. So coming out freshman year, obviously we had tough competitions. My first match, I think, was against a top 20 guy. So, you learn in a hurry, and, I was able to knock him off and kind of start from there and really just kind of start my career off on the right foot and kind of use that as a kind of stepping stone my freshman year. And, I took a third at the EIWA conferences. I had 2 tough guys in front of me, both, who was Michael Cannon and Steve Antravage, both who went on to be multiple-time All-Americans. So I was right there in the mix with things. And, I really thought my freshman year was a really big success. I had big hopes in my sophomore year. And, kind of went into my sophomore year, things didn't go the way that I thought they was going to go. I ended up taking, I think, 4th in the EIWAs and winning a match at the NCAA tournaments. And, I kind of took a step back and after my season and kind of really self-evaluated myself because, some people might think that, that was a successful year. And in my eyes, it wasn't for me. That wasn't enough for me. I wanted to be an All-American. I wanted to take that next step. So, I really took some, soul searching over that course of that spring and into the summer, really made some lifestyle adjustments and really kind of bought all in, because that's what I wanted to do. And really kind of that's when people kind of said, oh, you'll never be an All-American, or you're not going to be the top guy. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to prove you guys wrong. Like, that's what fuels me. I wanted people to doubt me during that year. That's what made me wake up at, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and really grind it out. That's what made me, go to the stadium when it was 95 degrees out, because other people weren't doing it. It's almost, sadistic or kind of psychotic. You think of things that, what other people aren't doing or what the other competition is not doing. I always thought, like, when I was running those stadiums in 95-degree heat, it's like, there's no other person doing this in the country than me, and kind of taking that into consideration and really kind of pushing what I wanted to be and kind of separate myself from the rest of the pack, because, you know, that's what's going to make the difference. You know, waking up early, you know, putting in the extra effort, really kind of buying into the program. And you know, it showed going into my junior year. You know, I know a lot of people kind of weren't ready for it or kind of weren't expecting it, and coming in and, you know, knocking off a lot of top net level guys. You know, I know when I was coming into, you know, Missouri, you know, #1 ranked guy in the country, you know, sometimes I believe I was the only guy that thought I was going to win that day. So, you know, huge kind of, not a morale booster, but, you know, kind of knew I was at the top of the pack during that year. And, you know, obviously, you know, Lawrence knows, and, you know, a lot of my other teammates know, we had a couple setbacks, you know, junior year. Kind of, you know, thinking about it now, it was almost a blessing in disguise. You know, let myself kind of regroup, heal up, you know, get strong, kind of, you know, had to kind of push through it, you know, fight through those times and kind of push through it and go into the, you know, EIWAs and come up second. And, you know, I was right there. You know, I lost to Lunas, who was #1 in the country right then, hadn't been taken down all year. And, you know, I only lost by like a point or two. So it was definitely, going into the national tournament, I knew I was one of those top level guys, and maybe nobody else kind of knew it, but I kind of did. Going into the tournament unseeded, you know, I still kind of knew I was going to be it. So, you know, same thing with that, you know, going in unseeded, knocking off a lot of top level guys, you know, the 10, the 8, a lot of things like that, even the 4, and a lot of top level guys that had All-American the prior year, which is definitely a huge accomplishment in my eyes. It's okay. Yeah, go ahead. So that was huge for the program. Just kind of, you know, getting that monkey off the back, you know, knew when I could do it. And, you know, we hadn't had All-American in quite some time. So it was definitely, you know, an accomplishment both for myself and as a program, because, you know, we had just started it 3 years prior, and shown what the growth we could have done, you know, in those 3 short years. Because, you know, a lot of other, you know, wrestling programs that just start up can't do that what we did, you know, are still struggling to get an All-American and still kind of struggling to push that guys through. And so, you know, after that junior year, it was kind of like I was the guy. You know, I had to kind of set the standard for the rest of the group, you know, be a positive role model, just kind of set the standard and hold other people accountable. You know, I know when we first started this journey, we had 24 guys, you know, 24 freshman guys that came in, and what's left is pretty much on this phone call is what you're seeing. So we really whittled it down and got rid of a lot of people and kind of worked it through. And, you know, that senior year was a huge kind of accomplishment for both myself and as a program, because, you know, we punched a lot of guys through. You know, I was able to, you know, win an EIWA title. You know, LeValley was able to come in second, and then we were both able to go on and become All-Americans. So it was a huge stepping stone and huge kind of kickoff for the program.
Yeah, man, to be the first is one of the hardest things to do, and to be our first EIWA champion, first All-American from the reinstatement of the program, that's really, really hard to do. And then also, I think part of that was in the middle of June when you also would try to rip your coach's head off of his shoulders. He was getting ready to go to a golf tournament. I just happened to stop by the restroom just to, I don't even know, I was probably looking for something. You happened to be in there and said, hey, do you want to go? And how do you tell your guy, no, I don't really want to go with you right now? And sure enough, you tried to separate my head from my rest of my body. It was a life-altering moment for me. It affected my golf tournament that I was in. And I think I'm still, I don't know, a little bit sore from it. So anyway.
Yeah, it was a life-altering moment for me, because it was like, oh, now I can beat coach.
That had never happened before. I was like, what? And I think I kicked you. I kicked my foot at you because that had never happened before. I was like, what is going on here? All right.
Physical kick.
Marvs, I'm turning it over to you, man. Just talk about just maturing from your freshman year through your senior season.
Yeah, hard to follow that, but I think the biggest change for me as time went on was I changed from trying to be the hardest worker in the room to adjust to being more the smartest worker in the room, where as a freshman with no upperclassmen, with no one to tell you what to do or what not to do, All I knew was what I had learned in college, which was just try to outwork everybody and try to lead that way. As time went on and I learned, I can't spend an extra 2 hours on the stair stepper to lose weight. I need to be smarter about this, or I need to be a little bit more technical with this drill instead of hitting it as hard as possible and learn it that way. And also a big change was having teammates that I needed to be a role model for and bring along and show the way of the Bison. As Kevin came and other underclassmen came, we started pulling them into living with us or to come and do a drill with us or get up early with us. And so I think that's what it takes to be a good team, right? Is you need people holding you accountable, and you need people to show you, if not a new way of doing things, a better way to do things. And so I think I tried to make that adjustment and pull people along. And sure enough, by our junior year, I think we placed third in the conference, which is the highest we had placed at that point, and still the highest, sent sixth to nationals. And a lot of my identity as a Bucknell wrestler falls in that, where I didn't achieve anywhere near what I wanted to individually, but as a team, we exploded very fast and put us in a different tier of schools in terms of what we could do and achieve as a team. And so I'm proud of that. And I think that's a lot of guys like Randy, Shane, and I making those adjustments, and Kevin making those adjustments as we got older.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that development, you guys definitely developed each and every year, not just physically, but mentally. Shane, even though you never had that accomplishment that Randy had in beating me during your time, or even getting me at all during your time, that was just a one-time moment. Talk about your maturing as a wrestler process.
Yeah, no, I definitely had a different path than them. They were pretty well established coming out of high school. And for me, physically, I think I needed to mature more to give myself the confidence to go out there and upset a top guy. And I don't think I had it my freshman year. And at some point that summer, though, I think Sprecher came back into the wrestling room, and it was my first time ever wrestling over the summer, because I never did that until college. And so I knew that I had a lot of, growth to see that summer. And I was looking forward to my sophomore year. Plus we brought in really stiff competition, and, the competition drives me to, get to the top. And Larry Sprecher came back on campus that summer for something, and I threw him in a leg cradle. And for the very first time, I actually beat one of my coaches, because I couldn't beat Hoffman. And even though he weighed 50 pounds less than me, I couldn't beat Werns. And maybe I was able to beat Tom Carr, but it was Larry Sprecher and the leg cradle I slapped on him that summer that gave me some confidence to, see a little bit of success and eventually overcome a challenging sophomore season, first half of the season, to earn the varsity spot that second half, and upset a couple top ranked guys that spring, and the rest is history. Now, once I got the confidence that I can go out there and deliver a result for my team and for my colleagues, my teammates, my coaches, my family, that's when I knew I could do it, repetitively and, on each and every year from there. So.
Yeah, that's really good. Why we don't have Larry Sprecher on this call is beyond me. It would have been a classic. We would have never got off the call, first of all. It would have carried into the evening, well into the evening. But if I could just share briefly, the one thing about Shane, his development, his just overall attitude, just positive attitude of belief in himself. I think the turning point for Shane was we did bring a guy that I think there was a wrestle off. Shane lost the wrestle off, and I remember his dad not being very happy. I remember his dad being in my office with Shane, and I'll never forget Shane's response to his dad's comments was, "Dad, coach is right. Don't worry about this. I will get the spot back." And it wasn't more than a few weeks later. It was probably, I don't know, within a month. Sure enough, it was your spot. You did earn it back. You went and competed for it each and every day in the practice room, in open tournaments, and you proved it in competition. Yep. That is called maturity and development. And I mean, that's something, I don't know if you remember it that way, but that's how I remember it. And I'll never forget it.
I totally remember exactly that moment. And then I yelled at my dad. He stayed in your office. I went to the weight room.
Yeah.
And I had a great workout and never looked back.
Yeah, your dad was upset, and usually people would side with their dad, and you stuck up for me. You said, "You know what, Dad? Coach is right. But I will get this back."
Yep.
It was a cool memory and a cool moment.
And a technique thing that really helped me that first summer was the two-step reapproach of my outside single that you taught me. That you know I was doing it wrong my whole life and still having success, but that little tweak really allowed me to engage a little bit better for my feet.
If we could only get Matt Kolonia to do it, we would be okay, Shane.
Lawrence has taught that two-step outside single every single practice since I've been here.
Well, he's got the best sweep in the conch.
Oh, I know. He never lets us hear anything else.
Shane, I'll start with you with this next one before I turn it over to Matthew. What's your most memorable experience as part of the Bucknell Wrestling program? If there's one, I'm sure there's a handful, but if there's one that sticks out more than any of the others, what's your most memorable experience?
I think my most memorable experience was the first time we took third place at the EIWAs. It was both a moment that experienced a very big team victory for us, but also an individual accolade of mine. I actually wrestled in the third place match against my high school teammate, who was a two-time Jersey state finalist and state champ his senior year, Lehigh guy, our arch nemesis. And he was supposed to beat me, tech fall me when we were back in high school. And then I go out there and I beat him by a couple points and, look up to the crowd and my dad's big belly's hanging out of his shirt like this. And Werns and I are hugging. And that was a great moment individually. And then, for people like Scotty Seckler to have that underdog performance to help us, get to third place for that EIWA tournament. Obviously, our horses in Rendy, Marble, and LeValley were going to do their thing out there. But I think there's a couple other people I'm missing, but I know Seckler had that big day that was unexpected and launched us into third place, which was just an incredible moment. So.
Yeah, that's a great memory for sure for all of us. There's no question about it, especially when we didn't have any seniors in the lineup at the time. But yeah, I mean, speaking of that Lehigh guy, I mean, there's a great example of, you talk about development and just the will to win at the college level. This guy was like one of the top kids in the country, and you were not even on people's radar or anyone's radar, right? And just to see that shift happen over 3 to 4 years, says a lot about self-motivation and development, personal responsibility, and things like that. Marble, we talk about your most memorable experience as part of the program.
You're muted, Marble.
Yeah, sorry. I have a few, and I hope someone else picks the others. But for me, when Missouri came to Davis, it wasn't even Soika. That was a big one because it was a huge team coming in. I don't know if we went out there the year before or afterwards, but they had a top 10 team, maybe a top 5 team. We packed Davis. I don't think I've ever seen it that packed. And we put on quite a show. I think we were within one dual match away from beating Missouri at home.
Yeah.
I pinned a decent guy. I know that was the day that Andy beat the number 1 guy in the country. We had a couple other upsets, and we were one match away from knocking off a huge team in Davis. And I'll never forget it just being so full. And, of course, Newcomb's got the picture. It's not the right picture, Newcomb. It was full and it was loud, and it was a great environment to wrestle in and to see so many people proud and happy of where we have gone in just a couple of years.
That is a great one. I'll never forget that too, when they came in and Rendy had the number 1 guy in the country. It was fantastic. Rendo, what's your most memorable experience?
Yeah, so I guess Marble covered the one, that kind of sticks out to me in my head. But the other one I can really think of is, senior year at the national tournament. in LeValley fighting for All-American status and wrestling two guys that we had never beaten. You know I had one guy that I literally had never beaten in my entire life. You know, I was probably 0-10 against him in my entire life, and I had never beaten him, and it was kind of push come to shove there that round of 12. And, you know, me and LeValley, I think we're on the same, almost at the same time, because that round of 12 kind of goes quick that time. So I kind of didn't know what LeValley was doing, and he kind of didn't know what I was doing until at the end. And to beat a guy that I had never beat before and to kind of send two All-Americans through is kind of one of my most memorable moments, I would have to say.
Yeah, I would agree. It was a great memory. Those both were Iowa State guys. You guys were both wrestling Iowa State guys. So, yeah, that was awesome.
Single-handedly took him out of the team race.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Kevin Jackson was pretty upset. And I just remember when bang, bang, you're right, LeValley was there, and then it was overtime, it was bang, and then boom, you were up. And the reason probably you missed him, you were so focused on what the task at hand, you know. And I remember just coming into your room, like before that, like we had the All-American round coming up, you'd got beat in the quarterfinals, and you just look at, hey, you all right? Are you going to be ready to go tonight? You said, don't worry, I got this, you know, I'm ready. So those kind of things kind of stick out to me that, you know, you were just confident and ready and looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, it was pretty much do or die. Like, they were going to send me packing home with nothing, or, you know, I had to push it through and kind of suck it up and kind of, you know, beat somebody that I hadn't ever beaten before in my life.
Absolutely.
You know, it was a huge accomplishment for both myself and the program, I feel like.
Yeah, 100%. Kevin.
So Randy actually took mine, and just watching him do that, man. I mean, that's what I've been thinking about since that question, just watching him win that match. Obviously, I was on top of the world, right? But as soon as my match was over, I scooted over underneath I guess the curtain that is right next to that mat that goes underneath the bleachers. And I didn't want to get kicked off the floor by security, so I was kind of like sitting underneath this black curtain and peeking my head out. And as the match went on, and Randy just kept doing his job, right? Kept doing his job, and it was getting closer and closer to the point where he was going to win that match. I just started creeping further and further out from under the bleachers and closer to the mat. And just when you know what somebody puts into something, right? When you know what somebody has put into something, not just the physical piece, but the mental piece, right? You know, the sacrifices that they've made away from the wrestling mat and away from the actual training environment. And you know how much for the past 4 years their life has revolved around accomplishing a specific set of goals, right? And obviously Rendas's was to win a national title. And just to see how he responded to that moment where he realized, hey, I definitely don't have the opportunity to win a national title anymore. But he was able to turn that around and put that performance out there. For himself, but at the end of the day for the program, right? He's the first two-time All-American, first two-time All-American the program had post-reinstatement. And like Warren said before, he was the first to pop on the podium once and the first to do it twice. And really, these guys are pillars of the program. I mean, I've got some memories with these guys that will last a lifetime. And just fortunate that we're able to stay connected and have been able to stay connected over the past handful of years.
Thanks for all those memories. They're awesome. There's so many more. Matthew.
Okay, so wait, do you want me to give a memory or do you want me to do the question?
The question.
Oh, the question. All right, I'll do a question.
Or you can give the memory if you want. If you feel like
I'll do a quick memory.
A brief memory.
Oh, it'll be brief. So I know a lot of people on here don't know who this is, but there's a senior last year in our team named Kyle Inlander, and he is arguably the most unathletic and uncoordinated person I've ever met in my life. He just is not an athlete. He was not born an athlete. He can't play any ball sports or anything like that. So he came into the program, was really not good his freshman year, but he is probably the hardest worker on the team every year, and he grinded. And at EIWAs last year, it's his senior year, my junior year, I just got upset in the blood round for EIWAs, so I was really upset about that. was off in the corner, sulking or whatever, being all upset. And I hear that Kyle's wrestling, and I go out and I look at him, and he's wrestling the guy in the blood round that he lost to 2 weeks earlier at our last dual meet at Columbia. He got tech falled in the first period against this kid, and he went out there and he beat him by like 5 points in the blood round. And regardless of how sad I was in my own situation, it just made me so happy to see a guy that I've come so close with accomplish such a great thing.
Yeah,
that was really cool.
Amen. That's a good one, Matt.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. That was crazy. And so my question is, what advice do all the people here have for me or potentially any other athletes as far as job connections and networking and life after Bucknell goes? I guess I'll do Marble to start again. He hasn't talked in a bit.
I'm going to go back to the last question briefly and say, when we beat Maryland, a top 20 team in our first dual meet ever with all freshmen, I was hoping somebody was going to say that, but nobody did. So I had to at least mention that. But I'd say take advantage of the network that's built into the Bucknell wrestling team and to Bucknell University. We have a Center for Career Development, CCA, Center for Career Advancement. They just changed the name. I apologize. But that's built in to your Bucknell alumni status, and utilize that network as best as you can. And then after that, be sure to keep in contact with as many people as you can, make good first impressions, do good work, and just stay in contact with folks. And you would be surprised how many people that you meet, you work with, you work for, you might run into down the road, or are willing to hire you down the road or provide a reference. Networking was built into that question, and that is pillar number one, I believe, in career success, aside from your own controllables.
Shane, you can go next.
Yeah, I mean, the field that you're going into, like I know people in that field too. So it's just like, share with people what you're doing, be excited about it. And like I said before, find as many mentors as you can, and they will connect the dots as best they can for you. But ultimately, if you show initiative and that grit and that, go get it attitude, you will find your way to success. But the fact that you shared your sort of background and the type of work that you're going into, like I instantly have a connection for you. So there you go. Who also happens to be a Bucknellian.
Oh, awesome. Maybe I'll have to get your phone number after this.
There you
go. LeValley, if you want to go.
Yeah, for sure. These guys are your biggest resource, no doubt about it. The alumni network we have built into our program. And I guess my other piece of advice would be just working to stay connected with your teammates, right? You've got 1 year left, but over the course of 4 years as a student athlete at Bucknell, count the number of teammates that you've had. And I'd encourage you to type them up, type up their names and phone numbers on a list or a spreadsheet or an Excel document or whatever it is, and make a checklist, man, after you graduate, just making sure that, at least once every couple months you're reaching out to those guys. And it doesn't always have to be a phone call. It could be a text message. It can be a Snapchat. It can be an email, a phone call, whatever it might be. But it's really easy. It's really easy to lose track of some of the people that you spent that 4 years with. It's easier than you think it is. So I think just making a conscious effort to stay connected with as many of those guys as possible is my piece of advice.
And I give a lot of credit to Kevin and Marvel because they both religiously practiced exactly what you just said. I'd get random calls from both of them. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? Catch up. And if they were dropping by my area in Philly, we got together, which is great. So.
Andy, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so, kind of based off of what those guys say, keeping your connections, and don't kind of shut connections out with other teammates or like other institutions, because I know with me, like I have a lot of resources, you know, just not with Bucknell, but like a lot of, you know, guys that I wrestled with and guys that, you know, that went to other universities and kind of competed against. And, you know, so there's that connection too, you know, just kind of not Bucknell and kind of using other resources, even like when I was coaching, you know, bouncing other ideas off of, you know, other people that I competed against or you know, I kind of grew up beside or things like that. And that's kind of a big thing too, is just not kind of branch out too. And I mean, I know Bucknell is a great resource and they're great. And, you know, they're more value than what anybody realizes. But, you know, my advice, I guess, too, is don't shut out, you know, just because you compete against somebody, you know, today or this year or over your lifetime, don't shut them out once you kind of move on to a different career path, because, you know, they can be full of information that, you know, another teammate that couldn't be. So that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I got one more question for each of you guys, and then I'll turn it over to Nuke to close us out. Who is the teammate you admired the most throughout your career here? And if you want to explain why, you can. Now, LeValley and Marble, you can't choose each other because you were best men at each other's weddings. So hopefully you go another direction. But who was your teammate you had? No, I'm just kidding. It's all right if you do. But who was the teammate you admired the most throughout your career?
I'll go first.
And Shane, go ahead. Yeah.
Without a question, Marble was the person I admired most, because if you took Marble's strength and endurance and then my like technique and ability to hold people down with legs and stuff and my length, we had the perfect wrestler. And like I admired everything that he did because it was the complete opposite of what I did. And he was just so much fun to watch, high octane wrestling, where I would slow everything down and, you know, hang on the guy and, you know, get to the edge of the mat when you need to. So Dave Marble.
You were a grinder.
Rude grinder, man.
No, but I agree. I mean, Marble was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, he was.
I would say Randy, but I don't know, man. Randy, Marble was fun to watch. Randy would yell at me sometimes when he came off the mat. Just kidding. Rendo, if you don't mind going.
Yeah, I mean, Marble is definitely probably one of the biggest things, and I kind of saw his drive, and you know, I knew he put a lot of work into it. You know, I know what he put into it. You know, we were side by side every day, and you know, he didn't put in just as much as me. He put in more. So, you know, kind of almost, you know, a good teammate. You know, help push in. You know, I knew we had a good, you know, competitive relationship with each other, and kind of, you know, fueled each other and kind of held each other accountable and really drove each other, especially like both in the weight room, you know, put on weight, things like that, getting stronger every day and just kind of competing with one another. So that's kind of a big driver too, is just kind of, you know, using him as a resource and you know, seeing him do one thing well and then kind of using it and saying, hey, I can do one better, or, you know, let's keep this going and see how far we can take this high, you know, because I know we a lot of times, you know, have competitions, you know, when nobody else was, you know, whether it was in the weight room, whether it was on the track, or whether it was, you know, anything, or you know, running sprints in the wrestling room, or, you know, doing takedowns, things like that, or how many times you got taken down today. That was definitely a big driver, and kind of used that as fuel for me over my career. So I would definitely have to say Marble was a huge influence.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that's the one thing. Marble did everything hard, whether it was lifting, running, wrestling, drilling, did it really as hard as he could. So, LeValley, you want to share?
It's really hard. It's really hard not to say Dave Marble. The dude was my roommate for 3 years and best man at my wedding, and the only guy I would call on a Christmas Eve that would show up at the wrestling room, because he was on campus too over Christmas break. Not because he had to be, but because he knew that I wasn't going to fly across the country all the way home for a couple days before Midlands. So he would stick around, man. He would stick around Lewisburg during Christmas and sacrifice that time with his family so that we could get better together and prepare for the Midlands together. And shoot, man, I don't think you could ask for anyone to make a bigger sacrifice than that, right? Sacrificing Christmas with their family for the purpose of making ourselves better, but for making the program better too. So Dave Marble there, and I'd say number 2 is probably side by side with him on the list is Andy Rendas, just because he did everything that I wanted to do 1 year before I did it. And he was just a guy that I was able to look to and follow that path and follow that route. So those 2 guys, without Dave Marble and without Andy Rendas, I never would have had the success that I had as a Bucknell wrestler. And I don't think the program would be in the same place without those guys. There's no doubt about it. So those 2 guys.
Agreed. That's really good, Kevin. Dave, we'll end it with you.
Oh, shucks, guys. You're making me blush here.
Marble, say yourself you can finish 4 for 4.
You can pick yourself.
Well, no, I won't do that. And I won't pick either. I mean, at different times throughout my 4 years, I admired each and every one of you guys more than the other. I mean, from day one, Andy and I were competing on and off the mat. And, of course, we lived together our senior year and built a great relationship. Shane was one of the few people that could enjoy everything on and off the mat as much as anyone I'd ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen him, but one day he was sad at practice. And that was mind-boggling to me because I was sad most days at practice because I needed to drink water and eat some food and all sorts of things. And obviously Kevin and I spent a ton of time together on the mat, off the mat, living together, doing extra workouts together, going to all sorts of weddings and being in each other's weddings. So each and every one of them played a big role in my development as a student, as a wrestler, as a person, a parent. And so it's been great to learn from everyone.
Great. Thanks, guys. This was awesome. I'll turn to Nuke.
Yeah, thanks, Coach. What a great session. I thought I think we knew it was going to be that way going into this, and it proved the same. And it was great to see all you guys. And first, let me turn my attention to Matt. Matt, thanks for joining us tonight, and we wish you the best of luck with this semester. And we are keeping our fingers crossed that you'll be competing come, late October, November, when the wrestling season gets going here for you guys in terms of competitive matches. We all hope that's the way it's going to be. So best of luck with that when it does happen.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, sure. And to the alums, guys, I got to see all of you do what you did on the mat, and what you meant to Bucknell wrestling can really never be outdone. The 4 of you helped put the program back in the spotlight it needed to be in, and you did it with such grace, and you represented the school so well, and you've done that ever since you left Bucknell. I mean, well, 2 of you are still here, and which is great to have 2 of you still at Bucknell, but you've done that in the real world as well. And Andy, just a side note to you, congrats again on the Hall of Fame induction, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that we will actually have that ceremony in the spring in person, because it's just not the same if we do it virtually. So, and I would
thank you.
And say, Coach, there's probably a couple other guys, at least on this call, that I'll be making the same venture into the Bucknell Hall of Fame sooner rather than later. So again, guys, thanks so much for taking out the time. To those of you that tuned in at home to watch tonight, thank you for doing so, and go Bison.